Hey, everybody. I am Randy C. Watts. Welcome to MoMo NoMo, the home of the happy apostate. Joining me as a co host today is Megan Connor, who most of you have heard and listened to her many shows. She has some incredible programming out there with her Exmo Snark channel and her third underscore universe, right?
Third underscore verse.
Third underscore verse. Why do I have universe in my head all the time? We are tickled to be joined today by Kendi Bingham, who is a former member of the LDS Church and is very active in her social media, podcasting, as well as I've seen a lot of posts that you've put up, Kendi, on TikTok, not under the name of Kendi, but under the name of what is it, Pioneer,
The modern day pioneer.
Modern Day Pioneer.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if you would mind telling us about your Mormon journey. What, coming up in the Mormon church and we'll poke a few questions at you from time to time. Let me tell you, the reason I wanted to interview you today is because I've seen at least, well, 100,000 of your posts. That might be exaggerating, but
Yeah.
I'd say out of that 100,000, all but one or two of them are out in nature.
Mm.
That you love to hike, which people who have seen the thumbnail will say, "Oh yeah, that's why she's got the saguaro cactus in the background." So must be from Arizona, right?
I'm not from Arizona, but I've lived the majority of my life in Arizona. So, yeah, I was born on the border of Idaho and Utah, in Cache Valley. And I lived on the Idaho side. I lived in a very Mormon community. I did not know anyone when I was younger who was not Mormon.
Wait,
And
it was between Utah and where did
Idaho.
you say? And Idaho, and there were Mormons there?
Oh,
That's
yeah.
kind of a shock.
Yeah. Yeah. So, growing up, Mormonism was everything to me. My family culture, everything centered around the church. And especially from my father's side of the family, I grew up living right next door to my grandparents, and they were very, very steeped within Mormonism. It was all about looking and being perfect. There was a lot of pressure on us to be a certain way. And, I've shared this publicly that I was a child that was abused, that kept that mostly a secret. I mean, I was talking about it to certain individuals, but it was always normalized. Because of that, I acted out as a child and a teenager. And I was labeled as this very sinful girl. And so I really struggled as a woman growing up within that culture of having this label without understanding really why I was the way that I was. I had a lot of conflict in my soul. So many times I would question myself, like, how can I feel like I'm this good person, yet I feel like I'm so damn bad. There was just so much, just a lot of conflict within my soul.
So you're saying that the church would gaslight you into feeling guilty about who you were to get that? That's a
Yeah.
shocker, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you're inside, and I describe Mormonism as a system. When you're inside of that system, you don't know that this is happening to you. Especially for someone like myself, I really believed everything that I was being told within Mormonism. I mean, as a child, living right next to my grandparents, who again were very steeped, the only type of movies that I watched as a child were the movies that were produced by the church. So everything, I mean, I believed in the literalness of what the church was teaching me. And so then to have that reinforcement coming from the church that I was this sinful person, it just I believed it. And I when I was 15, because it was at that age that I lost my virginity, I was required to read The Miracle of Forgiveness. And
Oh,
that
yeah. That really helped, huh?
book, I mean, that is at the point where I started to really develop suicidal ideation, because I mean, I was reading in that book that my abuse was partly my fault, that I was responsible as a child for the things that I was doing. I mean, it was awful, awful.
Yeah,
What
so Kendi, I'm identifying so much with what you're saying. It's such a similar story to my own, and we do get like so much shame messaging from the church that we're sinful, and reading The Miracle of Forgiveness for me too was awful. And I recall the part where it says that you should bloody your knuckles knocking on the door trying to get help or get out or get safe or whatever. So it was very much a victim blaming mentality. And I remember so much that quote too that says, in the course of thinking about these events, the person who has been victimized should think about their own role that
yeah.
they played in the abuse and what they should change and do differently or better the next time. And I really took that to heart. So I really believed in my soul that I was responsible for my date grape situation until I was like 30 years old.
Mhm.
It wasn't until I talked with a real therapist who was not, brainwashed into LDS thinking that I was able to understand that it actually wasn't my fault.
Wow. You know, I will say you're so fortunate to, first of all, I'm sorry that it took until you were in your 30s.
Yeah.
It was not until I left Mormonism and I was like 40, 46, 47, where
Hmm.
the pieces started to come together.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, wow. And with that, I'm so grateful to, when I look at my life and I see the two contrasts, I can say, you know what? I'm really grateful that I walked through that experience.
Yeah.
It has taught me a lot, and it's also given me the strength to bring me to this point where hopefully I can help bring awareness and help educate other women especially and help get them
Yes.
out.
Yes. That's wonderful. I love that. Can you tell us about what was your bishop experience like as a 15-year-old having to go and do so I'm just curious, did you go in on your own to confess?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yes. That side of me, looking back over my life, I can see that I have always had that guiding compass of this girl who wanted to do what was right.
Yeah.
And and so when it happened, I was terrified. Oh my gosh, I was just barely 15 years old.
Yeah.
I was terrified. I remember physically shaking outside of the bishop's door,
Mm.
waiting to go in. I didn't tell my parents. I didn't have a relationship with my parents were abusing me. It wasn't like
Yeah.
I could tell them what was going on.
Right.
Right.
Um, but yes, I mean, it started when I was 15, and then because I continued to act out, I could not figure out why I couldn't stop. I spent so much time in bishops' offices confessing my sins, trying to get right. It it was an awful experience.
Yeah, I'm sure. Do
And
you feel like, sorry,
I'm
Randy,
sorry,
go
but
ahead.
well, I'm just want to tell you both that my heart hurts for both
Mhm.
of you for having to pass through this garbage that you had to pass through.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
And Megan, if you look up the word empathy in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of Megan there. So, so continue on with your questions, Megan, because I knew that you two had things in common, and this is
Yeah.
wonderful that I have you at my side to to talk to Kendi about it?
Well, thank you so much for asking me. I always love meeting people like you, Kendi, because I think it's so strong and brave to step out of the system that you were raised with. And people just don't have any idea how much courage that takes unless they've done it themselves, and I'm so grateful that you're spreading awareness for other women because when I was I had all the same ideas and I didn't know what else was out there and I didn't know a lot of what I was going through was unhealthy. I
Mm.
didn't really label it abuse for the longest time because I thought, well, my parents are just strict and controlling. And so I'm identifying with that too, not having you couldn't go to your parents to talk about these things, you
Yeah.
know? So the question I was going to ask you is I'm curious if looking back on it now, if you're able to understand a little bit better about why you were acting out or if something, you had a light bulb moment about it.
Oh, yes, yes. When, through the process of counseling and really working with a very good individual who's helped me deconstruct my life and put pieces together. When I left the church, literally, it was as if I had been dropped on the floor and there were all these tiny pieces. I'd been
Mm,
shattered.
yeah.
And she helped me start picking up those pieces, and I don't look the same. I'm grateful with what pieces have been picked up of what's being formed.
Yeah.
As I came to understand my life and my acting out, that's what I came to understand. I'm like, oh, this is what happens to people who have been abused.
Right.
And and the sad reality is that religion, so many times, they are a part of the abuse. They're spiritually
Yes.
abusing individuals. And
Right.
for myself, I've always been connected to God, to a higher power, but there was challenge with that because I viewed God as just this scared. I was scared of God. I was never right. And I was constantly trying to do things exactly as I was
Hmm.
told I should do, especially after, it was around the age of 18 where I had this bishop scare. He scared the shit out of me. And it really put me on the path of being like an extreme Mormon woman that I just, yeah, there was just a lot of internal suffering with God. And that's one of the things that I've really come to appreciate now is that I now view God as pure love. And it's amazing.
Yeah,
It
that's
sounds like
wonderful.
it sounds like that pure love also extends to your own soul, that
Oh,
you're loving yourself. And that's the point I was making earlier is I see you out hiking and explaining your deconstruction.
mhm.
There's such what appears to be a newfound happiness and freedom in your voice. And that's why I labeled this show what I did. My path to happiness because I was the same way. Leaving the church was tough, but not because I missed it by any means. But I mean, growing up, the worst thing you could ever do is be excommunicated or become an apostate. And of course, as a little kid, I thought, well, that'll never happen to me. That's just for bad guys. Because
Right.
that's basically what the church taught me.
Yeah.
And look at me now.
Mm.
I'm not only an apostate, but I'm an apostate that's waiting for the guys in suits and ties to come knock at my door and say the stake president wants to talk to me.
Mm.
And I would laugh and tell him to go pound sand. But yeah, I could tell that your departure has brought this new happiness and freedom.
Yeah.
And and I know that Megan can certainly relate with that because Megan has a very similar story to us growing up, and Yeah, so continue on with your story. I'm all ears, but I wanted to let you know it's that freedom and that I'm I've finally stepped away and putting my pieces back together. That's what
Yeah.
I could see and feel in your words.
Yeah. Truly it's a really the irony of walking away from the church. I mean, when you begin that process, it is terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying. I mean, I did it all alone. Everyone thought I was crazy. And looking back at that time, I did not realize what I was stepping into as far as I was going to be liberating my soul. But truly,
Mhm.
that is what has happened, is through the process of healing and getting further and further and further away from it, and learning that, oh my gosh, I actually have value and worth, and I love me. That's life-changing.
Yeah.
That's so important.
Yeah, and I'm so grateful.
Well, I loved me too.
Hmm.
And I love me too. It is really hard. I think that is one of the main things that is hard about Mormonism, is that it's really difficult to love yourself when you're constantly being told how, the natural man is sinful,
Mhm.
and, how our natural desires, we have to put them all in the box that God wants us to put them in. And when they go outside of that, we feel so terribly guilty, and it's really hard to love yourself in that sort of mentality where you're constantly doing something wrong or falling short or not checking the box or not, being able to complete all your assignments or not attending your meetings,
Mhm.
or, whatever it is. There's such a long checklist in Mormonism. And when we fall short, we really are made to feel like we are less than, like we are less worthy, because that's what we're constantly seeking for, is that worthiness.
Yeah.
And I found it really difficult to learn to let go of those ideas. And now I'm completely allergic to it. So when I go to other churches or denominations, and I sit there, and I was in a Lutheran church a few weeks ago, and the pastor was giving the message, and he said something it's one of the things they recite all the time, that if we do not confess that we are sinful, then the truth is not in us.
Mm.
And I just hate that. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, sinful means full of sin. I am not full of sin. I am full of love and light. You can cut this out, Randy. I'm a fucking delight.
No,
I'm not cutting that out. That's too good. That's
we
good stuff.
all are. It's interesting because, well, I really resonate with that. And I, and I don't know what you're going to think of this, but when I was building my business after my divorce, and I was literally going like business to business, soliciting my services. That is one thing Mormonism helped teach me, is like I can walk into a building and talk to people. Um,
Yeah.
but I went into a psychic, and and anytime I would go in to solicit, I'd always purchase, just as an exchange. And so going into this psychic, I'd never had a reading done before. Within Mormonism, that's evil.
Hmm.
Um,
The
but what was
occult.
fascinating about that was that one of the first things she told me, and she knew nothing about me. She said, "You've been taught all your life that you are a sinful person, and I want to let you know that you are not."
Mm,
That
You
has
could
not left me.
feel those vibes coming off you.
love that.
And that's such a neat thing that you heard that from a psychic.
Mhm. Oh, yeah. Of
And you know
all
what's
people.
that?
I said, "Of all people."
Yeah. Yeah. Oh yeah, I grew up for 55 years of my life. I felt guilty about something. I
Yeah.
don't know what. I can't tell you, but there were I was always being made to feel guilty in the
Mm.
church. And if I can just share this quickly, I worked for the Walt Disney Company and in Florida, in Walt Disney World and in Paris. And we started having an issue at the resort that I was managing. I started off as a detective for them, and then I went into management and resort management. And the resort that I was managing was brand new. I got to, you know, watch it be built and be there with the helmet and boots on as they constructed it. So I felt really that's my resort. And we started having an issue with some complaints about housekeeping. And people were, you know, they we recruited them from other Walt Disney World resorts, to get a team. And I noticed that the general manager was his position. Um, he would reprimand, let's say the housekeepers or food and beverage or whatever department. If someone screwed up and got a complaint, they would be reprimanded by this general manager. He's kind of like a regional manager of the hotel business. And so one day during a meeting, I said, I hope you don't think that I'm being disrespectful. But I said, all of my people, they kind of shrug when you come into the room with a bit of fear and nervousness, you're going to catch them doing something wrong. And I presented a program that what if we started catching people doing something right? What if we started giving out awards for doing something right?
Yeah.
And it became a thing, and it became a big thing. And the difference in the attitude of in this particular department, the housekeeping department, complaints went down to almost zero. People felt like suddenly they're worth something. They felt good about what they were doing, and they functioned in such a wonderful manner, knowing that, hey, I might I might be caught doing something right instead of fearing, you know? And I,
Mm.
I, I kind of feel like that's what the church does to us is it's never about, it's never about the blessings we receive and how wonderful life is and love one another like Christ taught. It's all about if you don't do this or if you do this, everything has a punishment attached to it or a
Yeah.
withholding of blessings.
Yeah.
And so people come out of there, yeah, no wonder that we're all traumatized from that kind of environment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the church does a really good job. I taught seminary for the church, and it's interesting to look back at my training that I was receiving. They really, with teachers, emphasized how important it was to teach the youth black and white thinking. If
Oof.
then all the time. If
Yeah.
you do this, then this is going to happen. And I couldn't see because I was in it. But looking back, I can see it now, how that
Yeah.
formed.
Yeah. So, yeah, I had one teacher who used to teach, she would teach seminary, she would teach my kids. And one of her favorite sayings was, "You will never be truly exceptional until you realize that you are not the exception."
Hmm.
And, at first I was like, wow, that's really great teaching because it teaches the kids that no matter what, they have to follow the commandments just like everybody else. They can't get away with this or that. But
Hmm.
the more that I started to think about that, especially thinking about my kids and how different they are, and realizing I had to parent them all different ways,
Yeah.
I started thinking, well, we all have these different circumstances and we all have these different trials and we all have, different strengths and weaknesses. So, how are we not exceptional? Each of us has to live the gospel the best way that we can, and we're each going to struggle with different things. So I came to really not like that. And as I, have developed my view of spirituality after the church, it was after I left the church, I remember sitting down with my sister, who still is a faithful member, and just saying to her, I just can't believe that there's only one path to God. With as different as we are, and with as diverse a planet this is, there's no way that there's just only one way to get back to God. If he really does know us and love us as individuals, then he has to understand our circumstances and realize that Mormonism isn't going to work for everybody. I've grown far beyond that now, but at the time that was a really good way for me to realize that if God is who we think he is, or who we've been taught he is, then we have to think about that differently.
Absolutely. I find it remarkable. Anyone that I meet that is able to critically think, especially while they're still raising kids, how fortunate.
Yeah.
I mean, how fortunate for the child.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about that, because I have to apologize to my older kids for the kind of mom that I was. And to my younger kids, they have a very different mom, but one who is still figuring out how to do it right without, the gospel dictating to you every little thing along the way. It's a much harder, scarier thing as a parent.
I would love it when I'd hear these members, the parents say to the children, you keep that up, I'm going to have to take you in to talk to the bishop. Like cleaning their room or something like that, and make him a bad, scary man.
Yeah.
And no, it's no wonder we grew up traumatized.
Right. Right.
And,
Which brings us, sorry.
No, go
Go ahead,
ahead.
Randy. I was going to say, which brings us back to, I'm really curious to know what your bishop said to you that scared the shit out of you.
Yeah, well, just because of how promiscuous I was. And this was when I went away to college. I had been meeting regularly. I mean, even though I was doing what I'd been told I shouldn't be doing, I still, I was trying so hard to get right with God. But yeah, one evening, he just sat there after I had made a confession to him about what I had been doing. And he had his fingers, like this. And he just looked at me and he just said, Kendi, truly, if you do not turn your life around today, your life is going to be forever in misery. And when you're hearing that, and I walked home that evening, it was dark outside. And that scared me, that thought of misery. And so from that point on, and in fact, I met the man that I married weeks later. I just 180-degree turn, and I really went through. I started changing.
You haven't looked back then.
What?
And you haven't looked back. You haven't regretted any at all leaving the church, or are there regrets?
As of leaving the church? No. For me, the only regrets I have are things that I did when I was within Mormonism. And, I've been very open about the fact that my family, like my kids, our relationship is very, very strained. And I really think that a lot of the challenge, there's multiple layers, but I was an extreme follower, and I put extreme pressure on my kids.
Yeah.
And they're adults now, and so when you ask the question about regrets, it's not in leaving, but it's looking back. And I did the best that I could, but I can look back now with a different lens, and it's like, ooh, that wasn't, I wish it was different.
Well, and we all have that lens that we look back and it's like, cringe. But that's how we learn, we grow, and we get to know ourselves a little better. And I know what I'm the mistakes that I'm capable of making and the mistakes that I'm probably going to make. I know myself that well, but I'm pretty damn cool. So,
Absolutely.
and I accept myself how I am.
Hmm.
The Christina Aguilera has that song, "You Are Beautiful, no matter who you are or what you are." That's kind of like my motto because I know I'm flawed. As a matter of fact, I had my friend make up some shirts that just says I'm flawed. But but now I don't feel like I'm going to hell because of those flaws.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think that, just as a person, I like to improve and try to step away from anything that would make me a weaker person, but I'm gonna screw up. I have screwed up, heaven knows. And I deserve to be excommunicated from the church over and over and over again. But I'm so thankful for the freedom I found too, because I had to get to the point. I have 4 kids, 2 of them are gay,
Mm.
and to see what the church has done to the gay community and the LGBTQ, queer community is infuriating to me. And then and that well, and it's a whole different topic, but the disgusting allowances by the church of men who are predators. And Megan and I have talked countless hours about this, that, you have this church who likes to gaslight everyone and make them feel like shit, basically. Why can't we make them feel like shit for all the things they're doing blatantly wrong? But they
Yeah.
don't apologize
Yeah.
and they don't ask for apologies. They are them. They're not going to change. They're
Hmm.
blatantly violating rules of mankind that should not be violated. But, we have all these people in the world who are blind to that. And I know because I was one of them.
Yeah.
Are you kidding? I went to a temple and what they did in there is just pure cult. And they're dictating the underwear that I wear. And Christ, by the way, is up there blocking anyone from coming into heaven if they've had a little cup of coffee, you know. And heaven forbid you forget one of the handshakes, one of the signs and tokens. So they're gonna turn people around and say, "Go to hell."
Yeah.
It's just such an indoctrination that as kids, we grow up and we think that's the only way. I grew
Hmm.
up in Mesa, Arizona. You know how many LDS people are in Mesa?
Yeah.
And I just thought that was life. I just thought that was how you live because
Yeah.
everybody around me was Mormon. And then
Well,
I finally grew up,
that's the side of when you are raised in a cult, you don't know it.
right?
Yeah.
You don't know it. And that's where I have a lot of compassion for people who are still in it. Because I
Yeah.
mean, it took me a long time, and I'm shocked. Truly, I am shocked that I even was able to wake up. Uh, but I have compassion for those who are still in it because there is such a spell placed upon them that they don't know. They truly think that they
Yeah.
have their agency. They truly believe that they are making their own choices when in reality we know they are not.
Right.
Yeah. It's the illusion of agency.
Mhm.
And in actuality, this is what I started to see is that I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is Satan's plan."
Mhm.
When we don't really have free choice. It's not, and it was started with thinking about my baptism, when we say now, "Oh, so and so has chosen to be baptism or baptized." And I
Yeah.
thought that wasn't, when I was a kid, that wasn't a thing. It was not a choice.
No,
It
you
was you're going to be baptized. Now,
choose.
I was like you, Kendi. I always wanted to be a good girl. I wanted to be acceptable to God and to my parents. And so I wanted to get baptized, but I also, of course, we didn't realize at that age that we weren't really being given a choice. And I think that, my parents were also abusive, mainly emotionally, but mainly it was coercive control. And I think that they learned that from the church. They didn't really know any other way to do things than to be controlling, because the church taught us all to be controlling of other people.
Yeah.
And so then I did that to my kids, and it sounds like you had some issues with that too. So I'm curious about, throughout your marriage and your parenting, were there times when you had doubts that you had to put on the shelf, or how did that all go for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I even remember when I got married, you have no idea what's going to happen inside of the temple, other than you're told that this is going to be the most special, amazing experience of your life.
Yeah.
Hello.
I
It
thought I
is.
was going to see Christ.
Me too. I was literally looking like,
Me
when am
too.
I going to see? Okay. But I remember when I was kneeling across the altar from the man that I married. We're no longer married. I divorced him after 26 years of marriage. But I remember hearing the words that I was to give myself to him and he would receive me unto himself. I'm using the words from the temple.
Yeah.
Right.
And yet there was none of that coming back in return to me. And that was kind of that moment where I was like, okay. And then constantly when you're going back to the temple, and I've found that men oftentimes do not pick up on the same things that the women are picking up inside of the temple.
It's a
But
completely different experience for men.
yeah, the woman is constantly being told, submit, submit, obey, obey. And that, inside of myself, it just like, it didn't sit right. And I would, and we are given temple names, and the man can know ours, but we can't know the man's.
Right.
There was
Yeah.
just so much, the temple really, I was going all the time. I mean, I would go every single week, but I always had that, like, this doesn't seem right. And then when I started teaching seminary, and I was in the scriptures. I was one who read my scriptures all the time, but being a teaching seminary, I mean, you are really in the scriptures. I started to notice, and this is where I think the critical thinking started to really happen with me. Because I was teaching the Book of Mormon, and I noticed that the pieces of the Bible that had been put in the Book of Mormon, that the Joseph Smith translations from the Bible did not carry over into the Book of Mormon. It still showed in the Book of Mormon what was incorrect. And I was like,
Right.
what the how? So I started to ask those questions. And for me, the point where I really started to say, okay, I'm going to start asking questions. My husband was serving as a bishop at the time, and the church had changed their questions for missionaries. My ex and I always planned to serve a mission. This is not spoken about within the church, but you want to climb the ranks. You want
Yes,
to
you
get
do.
up. I mean, but we're called of God, right? But he
But
very
it's
much,
also, it's like an outward symbol to everybody else of your righteousness. Oh, if you went on, how many missions have you been? Like the more missions you go on, the bigger your kingdom is going to be, or whatever.
yes, yeah. So my ex-husband definitely was in the position of climbing. And I know that within himself, he was striving to be a mission president.
Hmm.
And so in 2017, the church changed their questions. And because I was the type of person that was always sitting on the edge of my seat in regards to what the church is sending out, I read those questions immediately. And there were questions in there dealing with chastity. And basically, if you had not kept the law of chastity, which is sexual purity, you had to reconfess again. And I'm like, I'm going to be like 60s and having to speak again of my past when I was a teenager. But the
Wow.
thing that really brought it to me was they said that if you had had multiple partners, which I had, that you were not eligible to serve a mission. That
What?
put me
What?
that put me in the fetal position on the floor.
So wait, let me understand this. I'm hearing this for the first time. This is completely new to me. I had
Oh,
no idea because I didn't. Yeah, I didn't serve a mission, and so I don't know. My daughter did. I had no idea that they changed these questions, but or didn't know what they were before. So you're telling me that if you want to serve a mission as a couple or even as a youth,
both.
that
It's the
okay.
standard questions.
Okay, so if you are currently keeping the law of chastity, you still have to answer those questions? They ask you if there was ever a time when
Yes,
you broke the law of chastity.
they use
Wow.
that word. Was there ever a point in your life where you did not live the law of chastity?
Oh my
Wow.
gosh. So the whole repentance thing
Exactly.
out the window.
That is what
Wow.
put me on my path, because I was like, it
Wow.
put me into the space of, wait, does this truly, what is repentance? And then I started to question prophets. And from there, it just went ding, 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 ding. And it took me several years to break free, but I did.
So I guess now that there are temporary commandments, there's also temporary repentance and temporary forgiveness.
Right. Yeah.
Like you're temporarily for you know what I would say? This makes me so angry, Randy and Kendi. I'm so sorry. It makes me so angry that if I were sitting in that interview about to pay my own way to
Exactly.
labor for the church for free and also pay for the privilege, and they asked me if there was ever a time when I broke the law of chastity, I would be very tempted to say, "You know what? Yes, when I was, 7 years old, I was raped multiple times over and over, and so I was not clean." I was 7, so I hadn't been baptized yet, but
Hmm.
Yeah.
I guess that probably counts, right?
You take a look at the graper, probably didn't have to bother with confessing or anything.
Right, well, he wasn't Mormon, thank goodness, because that probably really would have messed me up even more than it already was. But I
Oh,
also wanted to say, Kendi, even you labeled your 15-year-old time as promiscuity, but you and I both know, and you did mention this, that it's a trauma response.
oh,
It's
absolutely.
not it's not promiscuity, it's not sluttiness, it's not breaking the law of chastity. It is a trauma response to the point where people don't understand this, especially if you've been SA'd anywhere in your, childhood, or even in your case, like if you were abused by your parents.
Yeah.
It is a deficiency in attachment. And
Mm,
so people who have been abused will search for attachment wherever they can find it. So this is how people end up being trafficked, and it's how people end up in abusive relationships. It's why they stay in abusive relationships, is because if the only attachment that you can get is through physical connection, then
mhm.
you're going to do that no matter how harmful it is, because you have that deficiency where the attachment just wasn't there. And people don't understand that because if they haven't been through it, people just don't know that's a trauma response. It's not a sin.
No, totally. And that is one of the liberating aspects that I've received in my life, is to understand that I was not this sinful girl, that I
Yeah.
was a girl that had been abused and I was acting out.
Yeah.
See, and you say that you were promiscuous and that you were called someone who's promiscuous.
Mhm.
As a man growing up in the church, as a boy growing up in the church, I would never even think to say, "Yeah, I was pretty promiscuous,"
Hmm.
because I wasn't made to feel that way.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, they
and
don't use that word with boys who are sexually
Oh,
active.
yeah,
yeah, no,
it's just they're a horn dog, basically,
Yeah.
in a way. But
it's
but
acceptable. It's
it
fine.
it's a little more lighthearted
Mhm.
It's almost like, the good old boys club where, yeah, of course you did that. That's kind of natural, but here, read this miracle of forgiveness and get back on your horse.
Yeah, it's
That's
so
kind of the attitude.
unfair.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Sad.
so unfair how that for men, you're just sowing your wild oats, and for women, you're a whore.
Yeah.
Well, and I always wondered where does it I never understood if Christ died for our sins, for all of our sins,
Mm.
so that we can be forgiven of them. What in the hell would we possibly need a bishop who is untrained, who doesn't know his ass
Mm.
from a hole in the ground, and who probably is just as guilty of everything that I'm confessing about?
100%.
What
Yeah.
the hell do we need a bishop for to say yes or no, or read this? We'll guide you back to righteousness,
I
My
really
ass.
I know I believe that this is one of they're the gatekeeper to God.
Yep.
And it really is to keep control of the members.
Yes.
When members really can, if they can step away, they'll come to see that, oh, wow, the power is in me. I don't need this middle person any longer.
Right.
Right?
But it
Right.
really dumps down the individual and it makes them reliant on a system.
Exactly. Exactly. It is definitely it's all about control. And
Mhm.
that's what these things about these missionary questions are about too. It's
Yeah.
all about control. And it just infuriates me how, the men who are leading the church have no clue what it's like to be a regular old member of the church.
Yeah.
And so when they make these policy changes and they make the changes to the questions, they're focused on one goal, and that is to keep the system running exactly as the system has always run so that they can continue to benefit from it. And that's it. It's not the welfare of the members. It's not trying to have missionaries serving who are more pure. It's all about power and control. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
That's it.
it is. It is, kind of going back to it being the church of the devil. With when I was believing, there was always this like teaching within Mormonism of counterfeit.
Mhm.
Everything outside is counterfeit. And
Mhm.
what I have come to see is the Mormon church is the counterfeit.
They're the
Exactly.
big bill, the
Yeah,
counterfeit
Exactly.
bill. Yeah.
Yep.
counter. Most religions are. I have not yet found one that I'm like, I see that as being something that I can trust. I see them as
Yeah.
corporations that are
Mhm.
meant to control the masses.
Yeah.
The one church that I've seen that doesn't do that is the Unitarian Church.
Mm.
It's basically, whoever you are, we love you. Come
Hmm.
dressed as you want to come, you know, there's nothing special about anybody once you enter the doors of the Unitarian Church.
Hmm.
I've only gone a couple of times, but it's like they love everyone. And so there's a lot of LGBTQ members there, a lot of people uh, who the LDS Church would consider evil sinners, but they come there because they can feel the love, and they're not made
Yeah.
to feel guilty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I get sickened thinking about bishops sitting in a chair interrogating a little 11-year-old girl, asking if she's touched herself.
Hmm.
And I have several friends who are bishops, and I talked to one of them the other day. He's my former best friend in high school, and I asked him, I just said, "Look, dude, do you really talk to girls like that, young girls?" He said, "Yeah."
That's so gross because they don't have to. It's literally not in the questions, you
Yeah.
know?
Like, what's
They
the
don't yeah, they have to ask, "Are you keeping the law of chastity?" And, most girls that age don't know what that means, and I certainly didn't, but I don't remember having a bishop ask me those questions, but I certainly had friends who did, and unfortunately, it's rampant.
You
very?
know, they I have to use this example that I used to use on my mission all the time. Now it has a whole different meaning, but I'm sure you've heard the little ditty that if you take a frog and put it in a pan with room temperature water, uh, it will be
Mhm.
happy. If you turn the stove on and it starts getting hot, the frog doesn't know
Yeah.
because it's gradual. And
Yep.
if you dropped it in the hot water, it would instantly jump out of the pan.
Mhm.
But you just gradually heat the water and pretty soon it just dies.
Yeah.
It doesn't jump out because it doesn't know. And I feel that that's exactly how I feel about my time in the church. I thought that I was I guess I didn't feel the water heating up.
Mm.
Thank heavens, thank heavens, I eventually dragged myself out of that pan of frog water because oh, I'm wearing frogs today, as a matter of fact.
Oh, there you go.
I didn't
No,
realize
you did that on purpose, Randy.
one would think, yeah,
Yeah, that makes me,
anyway.
I've thought about that actually recently, Randy, in regards to just what I notice with the church. They're making so many changes that I'm like, how are the people not asking questions? Like, what is creating that dissonance where they're not like, this used to not be allowed, but now, it's just, but the church is so good at using just that modern day revelation and we just follow. But the church is, I feel like that with that analogy, constantly they're changing things and the members, they're in that water and they don't realize they don't
Yeah,
realize it's changing.
and the reason they don't ask questions is because we're taught not to question, and
Mhm.
it's the thought stopping of, "Well, the prophet said it, I believe it."
Yeah.
And that was I had such a hard time, in 2015 when the LGBTQ policy, first came out. That was a really hard moment for me.
Yeah.
But and I watched as so many members would just stop their critical thinking with that idea. It's like, well, if the prophet said it, then I believe it. And for me, I was wrestling with this idea of like, I love these people. How can we treat them this way? I was heartbroken. But,
Mm.
when you're in it, you continue to convince yourself that it's okay because the alternative really does mean death.
Yeah.
It's the death of your entire worldview, the death of your system, the death of the relationships you have with your family. And so it's scary. It really is scary to think about the possibility even that this could be wrong or not true. And I think with all the policy changes that come out, people, I think a lot of Mormons in the system don't examine them one by one. I think they sort of a lot of times kind of ignore it because it's like, well, if the leadership wants to change things, then that's okay because they're being told by God to change things, you
Yeah.
know?
It's eaten up at that point, you know? Eh, I never cease to be amazed at the number of people that believe it, and then I have to think, "But I did. I
Yeah.
believed it too." What
Yeah,
Mhm.
I I'm disgusted to think that I did for so long.
yeah,
All of the time, the service, the money wasted. But here's the genius part about the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, is that they've come up with this idea. Joseph Smith, this was a genius. I gotta give it to him. It was a genius move, but your family is held hostage.
Oh, yeah.
And if you pay up, pay your tithing, buy your way into the temple, don't do any of the things that we know are make you a slut or me a horn dog. Don't do any of this. Don't drink any coffee. And for
Mm.
hell's sakes, don't smoke a joint. Um, if you do, you can't get into the temple.
Yeah.
And if you can't get into the temple and memorize all our signs and tokens, you can't go to heaven. So people are scared for this not to be true. And
right.
they'll pay and they'll pay and they'll pay.
Yeah.
to stay members of this church and whatever the prophet says, because why? Because I want to be with my family forever, and I
Yeah.
can't if I don't obey them.
That's, I did not realize until stepping away that the church really does, while they promote the family, they're all about, right, the family, the proclamation to the world, they really are divisive. And after I had left, I had to stand outside of the temple for one of my kids' weddings. And I experienced what that was like. I also experienced, during my initial deconstruction, I had surrendered my recommend, but one of my children was getting married, and I was not at the point with my strength of being okay to not be there. And I pretzeled my way to get back into there. But I've experienced both. And the church, they will do what they can to keep the members in. It's terrifying.
Yeah, it is.
And the number of missionaries out there starts dropping. And what do? Let's lower the age, lower it down to 18, and then on top of this, the president and prophet of the church has said that, the mission is a good place to meet your future spouse.
Yeah.
So have a few dates while you're on your mission, get to know someone so you can get married, and because they don't want us coming home and having sex.
Well, they I think they realize that there's a problem with return missionaries coming home and leaving. And I think the lowering the age is more about indoctrinating them sooner than it was about getting more missionaries out there. And telling them to find a companion on their mission is trying to get you bonded and trauma bonded to somebody else who's going to keep you in line, so that together you're going to stay in the church and keep paying your tithing,
Yep. Yeah.
Well, it's pretty silly. And
yeah.
And all I can say, I don't understand how I was. Yeah, I do. I understand. I was raised in it. I was adopted into a family who was LDS, and that's all I knew. And everyone around me was LDS.
You were
And
indoctrinated, just
I
like
was.
we all were.
I
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
But apparently, we're the ones who have enough brains to start recognizing some of these things as we get a little experience in our life. And and all these sheeple in the church are just following, like you said, Megan, blindly following. Just do it. Do it. Do it.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is blindness, but some of it is also, like you said, an interesting thing, Randy, that we were the ones that had the brains. I think we're the ones that learned to trust our own brain.
Yeah.
Rather than to, give our brain to the collective.
Yeah.
And I don't blame anybody who stays. I don't think they're stupid. I think they're indoctrinated. And I think that there's so much at stake when you leave. And I've always said I was so privileged when I left, because I didn't live in Utah and I wasn't married. And most of my kids were already out. And so I did not have those things to lose when I left, as so many people do. And I understand why people who have all of that at stake decide to stay. And hopefully they decide to stay and try to affect change with individual people, but they'll never really affect change with, the entirety of the church or the leadership.
Yeah.
So I was going to ask you, Kendi, so I'm really curious. So it started for you with the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible, not making it into the Book of Mormon. And then I'm curious what the next things were for you on your deconstruction path.
I think that initially it was subtle. Just little things started to creep in that caused me to start questioning.
Mm-hmm.
But really, once I had that, I would describe it as another spiritual traumatic experience with those missionary questions.
Yes.
I started doing research in what I would describe as a safe space. I started reading the gospel essays. And as I started there, and I really started digging, it just put me, I mean, those years I was doing so much research
Mm-hmm.
and weaving through the cognitive dissonance that we have to go through when we're deconstructing our belief. I remember I had gone to the library and I was really curious because the church was making this claim that they were not aware of certain aspects of the history until like the 1960s or something.
Yeah,
And there
they
had
were
been a
aware.
book. Yeah, there was a book that was written by, maybe you've read it, No Man Knows My History.
Yep.
I went and got that book because I
Oh,
was
good.
very curious to see. I was like, if the church stating they're not aware, but it's in this book, all these different things, I think that I'm on
Yeah.
to a good trail of reality.
Well, I'm
And
curious, Kendi, if did you happen to read the CES letter?
oh yeah,
Okay, yeah.
all of the pieces that so many people come across when they're in that place of research, of really trying to come to what is reality. I read it all. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, getting that, No Man Knows My History was the first piece of, the anti-Mormon literature that I
Mhm.
started reading. And my son, who had served a mission, I kept the book hid. I didn't want anyone, I didn't tell my family about what was happening to me. I kept it a secret for as long as I could.
Wow.
Uh, but he came across that book.
Mm.
He was
Oh, interesting.
shocked and he shamed me, like,
Mm.
what are you doing? But yeah, it just was a process, which most people go through, of just
Yeah.
start asking little questions that then turn into bigger questions. And that little snowball gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And
Yeah.
once it starts rolling, I mean, if you really are a sincere seeker of truth, you come to see the reality, and
Yeah.
it's not what you've been taught.
Yeah.
I'm always amazed when I hear stories of those who have left the church for good reasons and then end up going back. I'm thinking, to me, that would be torture to walk into a chapel and sit through a sacrament meeting again with
Mm.
all of the hypocrisy thick in the air around me.
Yeah.
Oh no, not me.
No, me
Yeah.
neither.
Well, I think a lot of people who go back, they don't fully deconstruct. I think a lot of them deconstruct partially, or they read the gospel topic essays and they think, oh, there's some trouble here, but they don't go and deconstruct everything. They don't look into Joseph Smith's true history. And also to what you're talking about, Kendi, where they say the church didn't, well, we didn't know about this.
Mhm.
That is blatantly false. I just want to say, because
Yeah.
if you go back to 1922, B.H. Roberts, who was a
Mm.
faithful church historian, presented the entire church leadership with an essay that was something like 134 pages long, with all of the problems with the Book of Mormon, with its historicity, with its even, archaeological, whatever it was. There were a lot of things. And the brethren, their response was to each stand up one by one and bear their testimony of the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon. So they've known since at least 1922. And I don't know if it's a coincidence that 1922 is the same year in which the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints became a corporation. I don't know if that's coincidental or not, but I've learned that usually it's not. There's
Right?
something to that.
Now, if I can make a comment about people and their deconstruction, and this is
Yeah.
just from my own lived experience, even though within myself things were not making sense, even a few years after leaving, because of how uh, ingrained certain messages were, there were times where I would still get scared. And
Mm,
I'd start to be like, oh my gosh, what if they're right? There, I would fall back into that. And I think that sometimes for certain individuals, that fear side, just it has so much power that it just
Yeah.
pulls them back to that place that feels comfortable.
Right.
Well,
It's just, I don't think it's full deconstruction. I think it's just that fear that does come. It takes time to work through that.
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
And
like
out here in this space where we don't have answers out here. If we want answers, we have to go looking for them. But the church hands you everything on a silver platter and says, these are all the answers. You don't ever need to question anything.
Mm-hmm.
it's
Yeah.
like the Pope's assistant who came running into him and said, Father, the second coming is here. Jesus Christ is on the phone. He says, what? He says, yeah, but the bad news is he's calling from Salt Lake City.
Yeah. I've
It's
heard
like
that one.
it's like if we are wrong, we're all in big trouble.
Mm.
But I kind of feel like we're not.
Yeah.
I've never had a closer relationship with whatever power is out there.
Yeah.
I've never felt more in tune with the earth and with myself
Yeah.
than I have since I made my departure.
Yeah. It's a peace that I never experienced when I was in the church.
Well, and
And
were you like me when you realized the size of the post-Mormon community that was out there? Because I thought I was the only one. I seriously thought I was just alone.
Mm.
But I think there's as many Exmos as there are temple-going members of the church.
Yeah.
Well, if you look at the Widow's Mite report, the church says that they have 17.5 million members, but the Widow's Mite report estimates that really the people who self-identify as faithful LDS people is closer to between 5 and 6 million. So if you look at it that way, there are way more ex-Mormons than there are Mormons.
Wow. Yeah.
Way more.
Yeah.
Well, hell, there are more Seventh-day Adventists than there are Mormons. You
There
know, the
probably are
Mormons
more Scientologists than there are Mormons.
probably the Mormons claim to have 17 or 18 million members, which we know is a farce. But I think it's 27 million, the Jehovah or Seventh-day Adventists at
Mhm.
27. And so the Mormons, they're not that big of a deal, not as big as they try to come off like they are.
Yeah, I think that they realize their wealth, they realize their influence,
Yeah.
and I think that is what they think about more than the numbers. I'm sure that the church leadership knows exactly what the real number is, but they don't want the general membership to know that, because I think that would cause people serious doubts if the church leadership suddenly came out and they were honest and transparent and they were able to say, okay, this is how many members we have of record,
Mhm.
but this is the number of people that faithfully attend every day or every week. And I think recently they changed the criteria where they said, we count you as an active member if you come once a month.
Yeah. Well, something you said, Megan, I mean, they have to be honest and transparent, and that's just not going to happen.
We know that's not going to
Let's
happen.
talk about their money. I mean, come on now. That is not, we will never see that come from the Mormon church.
No,
ever.
especially when you look at their statements after the SEC scandal, where they failed to report the true amount of their holdings.
Yeah.
And their response was that they didn't feel like they needed to answer that question on that form. It was an IRS official document, which you have to sign under penalty of, being held accountable by the law.
Yeah.
And they said that they didn't feel like they needed to answer that question. So it's very clear that they're only going to say the things that they think that they need to say. And they truly believe that withholding information from the membership is the best thing to do, is for the greater good. That's what they really believe.
Yeah.
So
Amen to that. Well, so moving forward from here, where are we all going? I guess my question, Kendi, to you is, do you have different beliefs now about the afterlife
Hmm.
than you did while you were an active member of the church?
Yeah, for sure. uh, that's an area that was a big wrestle for me, and I don't know if this is something that you guys can relate to, but when I went through deconstruction, it was like the lights went out inside of my soul, and it was so dark for a while. Um, with a lot of gratitude, I've found a connection again. I don't, within Mormonism, they do a really good job of creating the image of God for you.
Sure.
I don't know what God is any longer, but I do believe that there is this source out there. And as I have just kind of experienced more of life, I would say that I lean more into the concept of reincarnation. I believe, this is my thought process, that it makes sense to me that we are we are growing as spiritual beings, and that I believe in karma, that we have lessons that we come here to learn. With my own life, I was not fortunate to finish college. And I always felt a lot of guilt and shame over that. I had made a promise to my grandmother that I would finish. And I've been able to reframe it because I now see life as my education. And that I've really kind of asked myself, what did I come here to major in? Because I frickin' have had some lessons that I have learned. And so that's kind of where my perspective is right now. How about you
Yeah,
guys?
I love
I
that.
I believe with all my heart that there is something out there. I thought I knew God and Jesus Christ. I thought I knew him back in the day. But then I find out that the deities in which I believed don't even exist. Not like the Mormons teach.
Hmm.
I like to think that there is a God that, I mean, someone had to create all this. I can't, they talk about the Big Bang Theory and all that, but where did all the stuff come from to make the Big Bang? It's just the eternity. There can't be a beginning. So eternity's been going a long time. I don't know what power controls it all. I don't know who he is or she, but I do know that I've been richly blessed throughout my life, and someone's doing the blessings. Th- Let's just boil it down to one thing. If the president of the church is truly a living prophet of God, to act and speak in the name of God, why don't they every weekend go to the primary children's hospital and just pick different hospitals around and just go heal these little kiddos with leukemia and cancer?
Yeah.
When it really boils down to it, if he's a true prophet of God, he sure as hell would have let us know about the pandemic or the 9/11 crisis. Y- there's no evidence. There's no prophecies. At least since I was old enough to think, I've never actually heard one of the prophets prophesy about anything for the good of man.
Yeah.
So what the hell? By their fruits ye shall know them. Well, what fruits do they have? None.
Well, they
You
do
just
have a fruit. It's called PROFIT.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's true. That's the kind of prophet that in which they truly believe. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I get hit hard by my Gilbert,
Mm.
you know, classmates because they're all of the same thinking. And so when I find myself, I don't explain myself any longer, but when I find myself trying to make them understand why I do what I do, I have to tell them that I feel like I'm being more Christ-like by trying to help these people who decide to step out. I know how much it meant to me to hear podcasts with people with similar feelings and thoughts and doubts and trepidations. And so I kind of feel like my podcasts and my TikToks and things are just me reaching out, not trying to pull them out of the church, but letting them know that when they're on their way out of that pan of boiling water, to take my hand and I'll introduce them to a community where they will feel loved, accepted, and not judged. For those who stay in, bless their hearts. If that's what they want to do, fine. But please, 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 people out there, you got to understand that we're following our hearts. We're following what the Spirit prompts us to do. Don't come down on us for that. How do they know that I'm wrong and they're right? No, I'm following my heart and what I feel prompted to do. And I've never been happier in my life. So take that, you slobbering geeks that call me evil because I'm making some of these posts. But
Yeah,
it's
I think they tell us always that we're, whatever spirit that we're following, it's not the right one. It's Satan deceiving us. And
right.
I see so many comments, on my own channel, on other people's channels, the nastiest people out there to ex-Mormons are Mormons.
So
They
true.
say the least Christ-like things ever. And they say things like, you're miserable and you just don't see it. And I'm like, guess what? I think you're miserable and you
Right.
just don't see it, And I think I've shared this so many times, but I keep saying it because I hope that other people feel the same way. When I made the decision to leave the church, I felt shame leave my body. And I have never in my life felt more whole than I do right now, because there aren't parts of myself shoved in a closet somewhere, told that they can't speak, that they can't be a part of me. And so I am more myself than I have ever been. And I always say to, you know, my former ward members are very hard on me a lot. And I just tell them, I have not changed. I still believe in doing the right thing, even when it's difficult. And that's what I'm doing right now. I still believe in telling the truth. I still believe in calling out dysfunction wherever I see it. That's the same me that has always existed. It's just that the former me, when I was in the church, I had blinders on about the church. It was the only thing that I didn't research deeply. It was the only thing that I didn't question. It was the only thing that I gave a pass to leaders and situations that were harmful because it was the church. If it had been any other organization, business, anything, I would have spoken up long ago. And I held all of that inside because it was the church. And I would question often to myself, what if this isn't true? I will have spent my whole life pursuing this thing that's not even real. And I would always gaslight myself by saying, 7 generations of my family, they cannot all have been wrong and blind.
Guess
But
what?
it turns out that they were. But
Surprise.
as far as where I am now, I, for a long time, have been firmly planted in this space of I have absolutely no idea. But what I love is the idea that I'm not postponing my happiness for some future afterlife. If there is one, great, cool. I'm sure it'll be beautiful and wonderful. But if there isn't, I want to have lived this life in the best way that I possibly can. I want to make the world a better place than I left it. I want to spend time with the people I love and care about, and I want to do good things. That's, still who I am, just not under their necessarily their rules. And it makes this life to me so much more meaningful. It makes me savor all of the moments that I have with my children and my loved ones. And, I also believe in the idea that matter can't be created or destroyed. And I believe that we all have energy about us that will take some other form at some point. But I have no idea what that is. And you know what? That's kind of cool. It kind of makes it a little bit more of an adventure, you know? And Randy, you're the one who really reminded me that I do believe in a spirit world. You know, when I was deconstructing, it's like you were saying, Kendi, there was a time when it was very dark and I was all the way down into nihilism of like, none of this matters. And why am I even here? And, all of that. It was really horrible. But little by little, I started to reclaim the things that I knew in my soul, but had been twisted or perverted by the church's idea of them. And so this idea that there are spirits, beings around us that can connect with us and communicate with us, I believe in that because I believe in the energy of that. And I also very deeply believe that I'm made of stardust. And so are all the people on the planet with me, and that we're all connected in a great energy of some kind. And I have no idea what that is. And I like not having a label to slap on it, and not understanding it makes me want to be more observant.
I love that so much. And I resonate with everything you've said. I definitely have found myself more in the space of energy and just really identifying with that reality. And I want to echo too that since leaving Mormonism, this ability to feel full of life is real. And to be able to really live it, because it was so robotic when I was in the system. And I really didn't feel joy, not to the level that I feel it now. And I just really feel so grateful. And there again, it's amazing to have the contrast between the two, to have that experience where I was under such a spell, I was numb to my life. And now to be in that space where it's like, oh my gosh, I've been given a second chance at life and I'm going to live it. It's amazing.
Amen,
I love
sisters.
that.
I love that too. It's about time to wrap up, but I want to tell you both that if you ever wonder or worry that there's not a life after death, there's very few things that I can promise to people. But that's one area that I can assure you that there's something after death. I can assure you that our spirits live on. And that's not because I have faith. That's, I think they call what I have a perfect knowledge because I've seen it. I've seen it. And so, no one is ever going to convince me or tell me that there's not a life after this one. I'm lucky in that aspect. I know there is. And that's a whole different show, Kendi. As a matter of fact, Megan has interviewed me about some of these things that, that I have seen that have eliminated any doubt in my brain.
That's
that,
cool.
there's a life after this. And I don't think that I no longer look at God as a judge or Christ. I don't look at them as judges. I look at them as having their arms extended and welcoming us home in whatever form they're in. I'm using the names God and Christ because, that's what we grew up hearing, but whatever power it is, I am not afraid to take that journey. I'm not afraid because I got a whole list of people I want to haunt.
That's beautiful.
I love that.
Hey, I can't tell you guys how much I appreciate uh, you coming on today. Megan, thank you for co-hosting with me and Kendi. I'm so tickled to get to know you a little, and I'm a big fan of your social media. Maybe you
Thank
could
you.
tell us what maybe and we'll put this in the show notes, but maybe tell us about your channel and your activities regarding social media, or if you have anything you want people to know about as far as services that you offer. We didn't even get into what are you doing for a living, but um, what should we know about you, and what should we put in these show notes so that people can see more of Kendi?
Thank you. Randy, first of all, thank you so much for inviting
Of
me
course.
onto your podcast. And Megan, it was just such an honor and joy to be able to get to know you a little bit. I look forward
Yeah,
to getting to know both of you better.
it's been
So
lovely meeting you.
thank you.
Megan makes me proud.
That's neat. Yeah, so online, I'm known as the modern day pioneer. The main reason that I chose this was because of one of my ancestors that I talk a lot about. She was a pioneer. She walked into Mormonism. She lost her family because of joining Mormonism. And I am walking out of it. And there's a side of me that has lost family too. And so it's pioneering in a different way. And one of my main messages is that the trajectory of the future can look different from the past. And my main focus is on helping to empower and strengthen women, especially women who have been in systems like a high demand religion or who have been abused and felt all alone in their life. Online, I'm active on all social channels. My biggest following right now is TikTok. I have a podcast. I have a website. I am in the coaching space. I love working with individuals, specifically women. It's not about my journey; it's about theirs, and
Right.
helping them come to see their own power. When we really come to see who we are, our world changes. And so that's my focus.
I love that.
Amen. I
Thank
love
you.
that too.
Thank you.
Megan, what have you got going on? What don't
Well,
you have going on?
I'm pretty busy these days. Ex-Mormon Snark over there, every Monday night we have family night. We enjoy, Kirsten and I enjoy an adult beverage while we read from our Book of Mormon reader from when we were children and talk about how silly those Book of Mormon stories were. And it's just a fun hangout. It's just a good time. And I love that. I enjoy it. And then every Thursday we have an episode release where we dig into a topic in Mormonism, and then we have a members only live afterwards. So that's on my Ex-Mormon Snark channel. On my Third Verse channel, I have True Crime Tuesdays. On my Patreon is where I have my course on how to identify and defend against manipulative people. And that's one of the things I'm passionate about on my other channel is teaching people what those manipulation tactics are like, how to spot them, and how to not get pulled in. So I love working one-on-one with people as well. I do a lot of that work, and it's my favorite thing to connect with individuals and see how our experiences can inform each other. So I love that. Thank you, Randy, so much for having me and introducing me to Kendi.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. I'm so happy that you guys had a chance to get to meet each other and that I got to meet Kendi
Yeah.
um, too. So uh, we'll put all that information in the show notes. And once again, to any of you listening who might feel a little hesitant about what's going on in your life, people like Kendi and Megan and I, been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and we're extremely happy. So keep up the good work if you're starting to see the light. And I guess with that, we'll sign out. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.